We've had a bit of a change around in the bedroom this week. Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I'm going to be talking about nothing in particular. You may have remembered a few weeks ago how I said that my manager had bought a set of bookshelves to work, and I originally had them on the opposite side of the room, but I didn't like them there. So I have finally moved them here. Basically, for the longest time now, I have had these tall books, hardcovers, that can only fit on one of my shelves. And therefore, I've had to constantly get rid of hardcovers. When my manager showed up and the opportunity arose, I took these. And I'm very happy with them, although I did fill them up immediately. Therefore, that means I will still be in the same sort of thing of purchasing a hardcover and having nowhere to put it. But this does also mean that I'm now able to have my paperbacks on the front of my shelves, even though I'm still double stacking them. I get to keep my favourite books facing outwards. On top here we have 6 Charles Dickens books that I'm using as book stands. What are they called? I don't know. They came from my great-grandparents, my nan's parents, and were severely water damaged, but I got given them when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I tried reading the copy of Oliver Twist and Great Expectations, but it never happened. I also have Heidi for children, which we found in a box after my Nana Amy, my nan's mum, died, and I had a lot more books and I don't know what happened to them all, but this one is still here. And then here we have The Modern Home University, The Arts Man's Quest for Beauty. I have an entire bag full of these books at my nan's, which are The Modern Home University. There are tons of short stories in there as well, and I really should go and collect them. They came from my Auntie Hilda, who was my nan's auntie, and she had a son called John, who was my mum's favourite cousin, and he was a big reader. He couldn't walk. I can't remember what sort of issue he had, and he died in his 30s, but he was my mum's favourite cousin. And my Auntie Hilda was dying of cancer, and so she said that I could have these books. And she'd kept a shelf full of John's books, and I only took them, and she knew I was a writer, so she gave me all of his short story collections from around the world, and I left them at my nan's because I had no room here. And so I'd like to get them, but at the same time, he had a whole shelf full of vintage books that I didn't get because I felt too bad. And unfortunately, whoever inherited the house afterwards just threw all of the books out, and so that has been one of my biggest regrets. Not because of feeling nostalgic, just the thought that this entire collection of books that had been saved for nearly 50 years just got thrown out like it was trash. So I keep these here, even though I don't read them because the scent ruins my allergies, just as nice things to look at and nostalgia. And I don't go for nostalgia, but when it's a nostalgic book, apparently I change my mind. And then we come over here to the cork board. Basically, over my time on BookTube and over my time as a writer, sometimes people send me postcards and letters. And whilst I don't keep birthday cards and I don't keep Christmas cards, if you ever send me a postcard or a letter, it gets saved because I feel like that is a dying art. And despite the fact that I really like Susan Dennard and I had this map of the Witchlands up that I got in this special box thing years ago, I had to put up the postcards that I had received over years from booktubers and from friends. You can't see it, but over here we have a postcard from Charlie Brooke, and up in the corner we have one from the Butcher's Dog when I was in their magazine last year. I just felt like turning this into a nice reading corner. I want to get rid of my granddad's dressing table because I never use it and I've just been keeping books stacked on it. And I just like to turn this into a bit of a reading corner, really. I think my mum wants this, but she'll have to clean her bedroom first if she wants to have it. I hope you liked that brief tour and discussion of these books anyway. And then we have a few trinkets that I've acquired over the years. Cogsworth from Beauty and the Beast, which was a gift. And then a little dog up there, an ornament from another dead relative. Again, I don't do nostalgia, but sometimes you just end up keeping small items. I feel like rather than just keeping the whole thing, keep something small and meaningful. I don't know what my relationship with keeping dust collectors is yet. I thought I preferred minimalism, but some of these things I just can't throw out because of their meaning to me. Let's just start off with no writing has been happening again. I don't think it's a writer's block. I think that I just have fallen out of the habit, and that is something I definitely need to pick up properly, because you were supposed to have this book in June to celebrate 5 years of Our Doris. I was releasing the final book. Yes, we've had a pandemic, and yes, I released An Heir to Murder, but I just feel like I've fallen by the wayside. I get questions related to An Heir to Murder and when the sequels are going to come out, and I have plans for other books as well. Everything's getting pushed back the less I write, and I had a great idea for the novella A Prior Commitment, which might make it a bit longer than originally anticipated, but hopefully I can still keep the book short. I've been inspired by the shorter books I've been seeing recently. I keep thinking that I need to try and make books that are longer, but I feel like maybe I'm just a short form writer. Maybe my novels aren't ever going to be huge, apart from Royally Doris, which is already at 40,000 words and shows no signs of slowing down, but it's the final book. It's going to be the longest book, and it's going to be the darkest, but I hope you adore it, because it's been a complete pain to write. It's the culmination of a decade's work. I can't wait for you to see the final product. I still have to find an editor. I might ask Dane. Mention it in a Woolgathering video. Dane, I might be asking you whether you want to edit Royally Doris, or whether you'd like to wait until the thing is published before you get the opportunity to read it. Every Doris book has been edited by a different person. Our Doris was edited by Lindsay Watson. Indisputably Doris was edited by Joy Winkler. Doris Ahoy was just edited by me, and you can tell because there are 2 Theresa May jokes in there. And then An Heir to Murder was edited by Dane, so Royally Doris, I don't know who will edit that one. But yeah, I think this week I've just been thinking about all of my other projects that I have in mind, such as A Prior Commitment. And I can give that title out because I've had that title since 2014, and it comes from a novel I wrote for National Novel Writing Month in 2013, in which I wrote this character called Hester, and we just went into her life, and I wrote it very quickly, and she has this fall, and we go back and forth through her life, very time slip, unlike anything I'd written before, and I hate the entire thing. But there was one part of it that I really could empathise with, and it was this fact that this woman is so lonely that she decides to tell everyone that she is dying. She doesn't see it as a lie, but she thinks it a way to get everybody to leave her alone. Unfortunately, it has the opposite effect, and despite the fact that she's telling people that she's dying, in the hopes that they'll just let her get on with her life, people start coming back into her life, and eventually this lie is going to escalate. And I have such plans for that book. She doesn't see it as a lie because she sees everybody as just on their way to death, but it's one that I have now been planning since 2014, because I remember having a chat with a friend of mine when she came to visit me when I was still working in the previous shop. So I really need to get a move on with all these books. Well then, it took me, 16 years to get An Heir to Murder right. Also, as well as A Prior Commitment, we have the Charity Shop book, which is all planned out, all ready to go, and I know the inciting incident. I still haven't decided whether it's going to be a multi-viewpoint novel, but I know how it ends now, and I know the denouement, so I need to finish Royally Doris. That is where all of my thoughts lie. Whenever I think about writing, I know that I could go and I could plan other things. I considered writing some of the children's book last week, but I didn't, because everything has to go into Royally Doris now. All thoughts, all writing has to go into that, and I have a plan at some point, but I just have to figure things out first. This week, in terms of reading, I reread At Bertram's Hotel by Agatha Christie. I was supposed to be reading 10 minutes 38 seconds in This Strange World by Elif Shafak, but I was enjoying that, but I kept having feelings like I wanted to read this. I wanted something nostalgic. So I read this, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I have done previously, but I've already talked about that in a different video. But know that whilst I didn't enjoy it, it still holds a special place in my heart based on nostalgia, and despite the fact that I don't like living in the past, and I never think that that's a good thing, and I'm very much the type of person who likes to live in the present now. I think it's nice to hold on to memories and feel nostalgic, but also still continue to maintain the thought of just moving forward and not thinking about what we could have done, just think about what we can do. So, similar to Ebenezer Scrooge, we have to live in the past, present and future, all at once. Yes, that does mean that I rewatched A Muppet's Christmas Carol this week. I was off work on Thursday and saw that they had A Muppet's Christmas Carol on Disney+, but I never had the chance to watch it that day. And then on Friday and Saturday I was at work, so you can imagine my surprise when on Sunday morning my sister said that she wanted to watch A Muppet's Christmas Carol, and I thought, well, we're clearly in a sync. We have it here, let's watch it. So we did, and I loved it, and it might have been a film that my sister was happy to put on because I was quiet for an hour and a half whilst we watched that. And then I understand it was August and it's probably not the time to watch a Christmas film, but I just wanted to. And then later on that day, I watched 101 Dalmatians, the animated version, and I forgot how much I really loved the animation style in that, and I really like the way it was all drawn, and it was just something. When I was sat there I was thinking, it's got to be nearly 20 years since I last watched this film, and I could not believe how much I'd forgotten, but also it seemed to move incredibly quickly. I was talking to someone at work yesterday and he says some of my favourite films are Disney films, and I just think they work for me because I feel like it's 90 minutes and you're done. And that was my brother slamming a cupboard door. Disney films are 90 minutes and then you're done, and I like that. I like this feeling of reliability, that you aren't dedicating so much time. It makes no sense, but that's just how I feel. Now he's tapping stuff. He must be making his dinner, and I told him he would be making noise that we would be able to hear, but did he listen to me? Did he eckers like? Also, I'm now being louder to try and, drown out the sound of him being a noisy beggar. I purchased some books this week. I couldn't help myself. The first one should be no surprise to anybody because every single booktuber that you probably know is reading this book, and that is Summer by Ali Smith. You know that I have read the previous 3 books in this series. I still haven't yet figured out whether I want to read this one and then reread the entire series as a whole, or read the first 3 books and then get into this, but this is the final book in her seasonal quartet, and as with all of her books, I've heard good things about this one. I've heard terrible things about this one. It seems to be the type of author that Ali Smith is. And next, I didn't know that this book was coming out until I saw it mentioned on Jen Campbell's channel, and that is Miss Benson's Beetle by Rachel Joyce. One of the things I love about this cover is that if you move it, and I don't know whether you can see this, there is some iridescence to the Beatles on the cover, and I love that. I love that thought and that detail, and I believe that this book is... So, ignoring the fact that you can hear my father and my brother talking in the background as loud as the clappers, what we have here is a book that is set in 1950, and Marjorie Benson decides to quit her job and advertises for an assistant to go and find this beetle, and they're crossing the country together. They're crossing the world, I believe. I find with Rachel Joyce, she writes incredibly cosy books, and I like that. I have bought this book thinking that there is going to be a nice autumnal day when nobody is at home and I can just sit and read this entire book in one sitting and really enjoy myself on a cold autumnal day, and that is why I purchased this. It also, I mentioned a prior commitment before, and something that's going to happen in this book sounds similar to this book, and I want to see how Rachel Joyce has done that to almost help me figure out how I'm going to do it myself. Reading as a writer, you've probably heard about that technique before, and it's something that I really appreciate. Indeed, a prior commitment was also inspired by Mrs Palfrey at the Claremont by Elizabeth Taylor, and this next book is another Elizabeth Taylor. After reading A Wreath of Roses a few weeks ago, I immediately had to buy another Elizabeth Taylor, and so I chose Angel because of the peacock on the cover, and also because this is about a young girl of 16 who writes what people have decided is going to be a major bestseller, and this is going to be talking about the literary world. I love reading about writers as a writer. I don't think I'll ever write a writer, but to read about a writer is always fun, and apparently this is something that Elizabeth Taylor does a lot in her work, is she talks about artists and writers, and so I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to read her books as and when, and I'm just going to probably purchase one each month. And technically this book was free because I spent that much money on Waterstones over the last year. I just really adore the way that Elizabeth Taylor writes. I still am planning a separate review video for A Wreath of Roses because I think that that is a stunning book and I would recommend it to everybody, but I have honestly been thinking that I really need to recommend it to Sarah of Hardcover Hearts and Leo of A Little Book Life, because I think that they are two people who would really appreciate A Wreath of Roses. Elizabeth Taylor writes in such an evocative, immersive way, and what was the word that I thought of? Unctuous prose. She writes with such unctuous prose, and it was just, yeah. A Wreath of Roses, I will talk about more in a review video, but I love that book, and I love her writing, so I think that I'm just going to love that one too. And then I was in the charity shop yesterday, obviously, I work there, and whenever I come across Stephen King, I tend to buy it now. And even though I have only read a few of his, this is one that everybody knows, and it is it. We were going to be throwing this out because we think that the type is quite small and we don't think that we'll have the readers for it in our shop. And so I asked if I could buy it, and now I have it. I don't know when I'm going to read it, but do know that when I was a teenager, I tried reading this book, and it scared me that much that I stopped after 200 pages. I don't know whether it's going to have the same effect this time, because unfortunately, since I was a teenager, I have seen some more of life's horrors, and so literary horror hasn't scared me that much yet. I've tried a few books, and whilst I really appreciate the almost urban fantasy type thing going on with horror fiction that I don't find from urban fantasy, which is what I wanted all along, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this one, is all I'm saying. It's also over 1,000 pages. Since I was at uni, I've changed my opinion and thought that no book needs to be this long, apart from The Eighth Life by Nino Hartwich-Philly. That could have either been done with being longer or being shorter. I haven't decided yet. This book is set in Derry, and most people know of Pennywise the clown, but he's also he changes his appearance a bit. I know that it appears every 27 years, is it? I watched the first part of the film a few months ago, and it didn't terrify me. The actions of the parents and the people in that book were more horrifying than the acts of the actual villain. I'm not sure how I felt about it, but also I still need to watch chapter 2 of that. I think that this book is everything together, so I'm not sure how it works, but we will see. I remember when I tried to read it the first time as a teenager, being somewhat offended by certain terms that Stephen King used in this book. I know about the final twist thing that happens that a lot of people hold judgment against. I just found that a hinge had got stuck to my Kindle because of the magnet in my Kindle. And isn't that the side note that you like to receive? I keep thinking about when we were in lockdown and the fact that I made videos for about a month every day, bar the weekends, and I just felt much more creative then. I keep talking on these videos about how I was almost living my best life, in that I had the opportunity to write as much as I wanted to and read as much as I wanted to. But I also didn't have this social aspect. Being at home all the time, I didn't have the social aspect. I was just surrounded by family. And now I'm back at work. I'm really glad to see everybody. And I really enjoy the people at work. But at the same time, whilst I'm there, I'm thinking, this isn't what I want to be doing in my life. But at the same time, it's 3 days out of my week. And the whole reason that I got a part-time job was to subsidise my income as a writer. And then at the same time, I also think, is it working for me because I'm still living at home with my parents and I'm 28? My books don't really sell. And I'm lucky in that the people who read my books tend to enjoy my book, and that I get orders from all over the world. I currently have a delayed order for Australia and Austria. One of my first events for Our Doris was a Facebook event for a book group in South Africa. I know that small amounts of people the world over have read my book, but the monetary side of things is that I don't make enough money as a writer, as an indie author, to live off of. And so I've always had my income from the charity shop on the side, and I need that. I also don't dislike my work. I just sometimes feel like it's not the job someone of my age does. It's the job for someone who might have decided they're going to ease back on things, or if someone does have a part-time job of 3 days a week, they're usually doing something else elsewhere, and I call that my writing. But if I'm not writing, then am I just wasting my time? And then I'm here making YouTube videos, so it's a strange one, is all I'm saying. I think what I just need to do is what I say in all of these videos now. Every Woolgathering video that I've released recently, I've talked about how I need to knuckle down and get the books done. And I can't blame it on anything else, because in 2017 I wrote Indisputably Doris, and that was written during a tumultuous time to work, in which I had to do a lot of overtime due to other colleagues' ill health and stuff they were going through. And so I worked a lot more days, a lot more hours, and I still managed to write an entire novel in 2017 and release it and do the most events for a book that I've ever done. Of course, we had 2018 where I didn't do any events because of the fact that the 2017 events had gone so terribly. Then we had 2019 where I released a book but didn't do any events, and then I tried to get back into things towards the end of last year. I had so many events planned for this year, and pandemic. And these things always run through my head, and I think that readers don't care about that. They don't see that side of it. Readers want the books. They just care about having the product there to read. I see it all the time when people will come into my shop and they'll be buying who they call reliable authors, because those authors will release more than one book a year. And yes, I'm talking about James Patterson. I have heard people say that because an author is only releasing a book every 2 years, they won't read them because they don't have the significant enough output. And I think it's sad, and I think that people expect too much, and they don't see writers as people. They just see them as like factories churning out stuff all the time. As always, I'm going to try and get some writing done. I have a plan for Thursday, but that could all get thrown out of the window. I'm hoping to utilise my time off well. I also need to maybe take a step back from Booktube watching, if people don't mind that, because I was that concerned about being behind on people's videos that on both my days off last week, I focused heavily on getting videos watched. I watched Katie of Books and Things videos, and they were brilliant through Jane Austen July and all the other, everything else she's done, and they're all in my other folks' videos playlist for you to go and watch. But that took 2 days. And this is the thing. There is so much good content being uploaded, and I feel bad about not being able to get to it. So I put aside doing anything that I need to do, reading or writing, so that I can watch people's videos so that they don't think I'm being unsupportive. And I've mentioned it a lot these last few weeks. There's only so many hours in a day, and I try my hardest not to upset anybody, and I want everyone to know how much I appreciate their work. And so I try to spend time crafting answers and responses to videos, and it's a difficult one. It's difficult to balance. I'm not sure what the best thing to do is going forward. Time management has never been my forte. Perhaps I should start watching YouTube videos and writing longhand. Worry about arthritic wrists later. I'm going to disappear now simply because I might have bored you enough already, and my brother and father are getting increasingly louder, so I might just go and throw a few mucks at them. You know, just simple northern rubbish. I hope that you've got some form of entertainment out of this video. even if it was just pausing it and laughing at any sort of weird face I might have made. And until next time, that is all.